All right, let's get this show on the road. Tonight, we are diving into a movie that I think really changed how we look at comic book movies.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're talking about Blade from 1998.
Oh, Blade!
This wasn't just your typical vampire flick.
Right.
It had this awesome blend of martial arts, action, horror, and a whole lot of style.
It's really interesting to think about how Blade came out when superhero movies were still trying to figure out what they were.
Yeah.
It was dark, it was gritty, and it was violent, and audiences just weren't used to that from this kind of movie.
That's a good point. It
Right.
really had this raw energy that set it apart. But let's give our listeners some background. So the movie starts with this crazy scene in an underground rave.
Oh, I love that scene.
You've got the music, the dancing, and then all of a sudden, bam, blood sprinklers go off and all hell breaks loose.
It's an incredible way to set the tone and introduce our main guy, Blade.
Yeah.
He just bursts onto the scene, taking down a whole horde of vampires.
It's brutal.
Stylish.
And it grabs your attention right away.
Absolutely.
Wesley Snipes as Blade, he just owned that role.
He was perfect for it.
He had that intensity, that physicality. You totally believed he was this half vampire, half human hybrid on a mission to hunt down these creatures. Speaking of which, can we talk about the whole Daywalker thing? What makes Blade so special?
Sure. So Daywalker basically means Blade can walk in daylight, but he still has all the crazy strength and speed of a vampire.
Right.
He doesn't have most of their weaknesses, but he's still got that insatiable bloodthirst. It's this constant struggle, this battle within himself that makes him such a compelling character.
It definitely adds layers to him. You
Yep.
see him dealing with that dual nature throughout the movie. And then there's Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff, and he's amazing.
I love him as the villain.
He's not your typical brooding vampire hiding in a castle.
All right.
He's ambitious, he's power hungry, and he wants to throw out all those old vampire traditions.
He represents this new generation of vampires, They don't want to hide in the shadows, they crave power, and they aren't afraid to challenge the old ways.
And the styles, they are so different.
Totally.
You've got Blade, the expert hunter, fighting with this almost, poetic precision.
Yeah.
And then you've got Frost, who's just pure raw power and chaos.
Yeah.
Do you think the director, Stephen Norrington, was playing with those styles on purpose, visually?
Oh, definitely. Norrington was super into Hong Kong action movies.
Oh, cool.
And you can see that in the way the fights are choreographed. Blade moves like a dancer, all sleek, while Frost is just brutal force. And the way he uses slow motion, those dramatic shadows and quick cuts, it's like he's turning the action into this operatic experience.
I love a good fight scene. And this movie has some of the most memorable ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not all just fighting and killing.
Right.
The film also does a great job with the human element, with the character Karen Jensen. She's a hematologist who gets caught up in this whole vampire world.
And Bushwright does a great job with that role. Karen shows us how vulnerable humans are to these supernatural creatures. But she's not just a victim. She's smart, she's tough, and she helps Blade understand the vampires so he can fight them.
And she brings some warmth to the movie, especially with Blade. There's this connection there, but he's always pushing her away. Like he's got this whole lone wolf thing going on.
Yeah.
What did you think about their dynamic?
It was interesting. It shows you that struggle inside him. He wants to be close to someone, but he's afraid he'll hurt them.
Yeah.
Karen represents a normal life, a way out of this endless war against vampires. But he's so focused on his mission that he just can't let anyone in.
And you see that same struggle reflected in how the movie looks.
Yeah.
You've got these stark contrasts of light and shadow, gothic stuff, mixed with modern cityscapes. It's like those two worlds he's constantly caught between. And oh my God, the blood.
The blood, there is a lot of it.
Yeah, and it's not just for shock value.
It's deliberate.
Yeah.
It symbolizes that life force that vampires steal and that Blade, as a daywalker, has to keep in check. He's got to control it.
You're right. It's definitely not a movie for the faint of heart.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of blood and the folks who crave it, what about the tension between those old school vampires and Frost's crew? It's like they're playing by different rules.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You've got the older vampires like Dragonetti, played by Udo Kier.
Mm-hmm.
He's all about tradition and keeping things secret. They've built this whole system where they live alongside humans, but they stay hidden. Frost doesn't want any of that. He sees humans as just, food. Something to use.
And that disrespect for the old ways is what leads to that fight between Frost and the Elders, right?
Yeah.
When he exposes that main vampire to sunlight. Brutal.
Totally. It shows how much power Frost wants and how far he'll go to get it. He doesn't care who he betrays.
And his big plan is to awaken that blood god, Le Magras, right, that could wipe out all of humanity.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about Whistler.
Ah, Whistler.
He's Blade's mentor, the weapons guy, played by the legendary Chris
This
Christopherson.
is awesome.
He's that gruff, tough father figure Blade never had. Gives him weapons, the serum to fight his thirst, and some tough love.
Whistler's more than just a sidekick, though. He's got his own issues, secrets, and a lot of guilt about his past. His relationship with Blade, it's one of the most interesting parts of the film.
It's a relationship built on trust and pain. They've both lost a lot because of vampires, and that binds them together.
And that bond gets pushed to the limit when Frost attacks Blade's lair.
That's right. And that attack is just devastating, not just physically but emotionally. But we'll get into that epic showdown between Blade and Frost in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Can't wait. Man, that attack on Blade's lair, it's rough.
It really is.
It's not just that they wreck his place, it's what Frost does to him, emotionally,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the way the director, Norrington, films that whole thing, it's like a horror movie right in the middle of all this action. You feel trapped.
Yeah, like you're being hunted.
Huh?
And it leaves Blade messed up, like he's lost everything.
Yeah, he's lost his home, the person he relied on, his father figure. It changes him.
He was always driven by revenge, but now it's even worse. It's like grief and rage are pushing him forward.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Frost is getting closer and closer to his goal. Waking up that blood god. He's collecting those weird artifacts, twisting the rituals, even turning some of the older vampires to his side.
He is ambitious.
Yeah, even though he's a total jerk about it, you gotta admire that drive. That scene where he does that ritual on himself with the blood of the elders.
Oh, yeah, that scene. He transforms, right.
It's full-on horror movie territory at that point.
It's disgusting and cool at the same time. Those effects, they did a great job. It's so disturbing.
You really feel the dread building as Frost gets more powerful. He's like this unstoppable force, loving every minute of it.
And he's got this army behind him, all those vampires who want the same thing.
Yeah.
A world ruled by them.
Which leads us to that final showdown between Blade and Frost, the Temple of Eternal Night. It's what the whole movie's been leading up to, and it doesn't disappoint.
Oh, man. Before that, though, do you remember that big reveal about Blade's mom?
Oh, yeah. Vanessa. She's alive.
And working with Frost.
I was shocked when I saw that in the theater.
Total twist. Changes everything.
Yeah, you think you know Blade's story, and then bam. The filmmakers were smart to do that.
It makes that fight mean so much more.
Right.
Blade's not just saving the world, he's facing his own past, his origins.
You can see that in how that last fight looks, too.
Yeah.
Blade's in all black, fighting for control, and Frost is just this monster.
Visually, it's fantastic.
And the choreography. It's so fast, so intense, so well shot. You can really see those Hong Kong action movie influences. That one shot where Blade's in midair, slicing through a vampire, blood flying everywhere.
Poetry. Pure cinematic poetry.
And we can't forget Karen. She's not just sitting around in this final part.
No, she's important.
She helps turn things around.
Yeah.
She gets away, gives Blade that serum to boost his powers, and that gives him what he needs to beat Frost.
Karen's not just a love interest or some helpless woman. She's smart and plays a real part in Blade's mission.
For sure. And that last fight between them, Blade and Frost, it's epic.
It's like two forces of nature going at it. Blade, stakes, supernatural powers, everything.
I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The sound, the music, the effects, they all build to this incredible cinematic moment.
And then Frost explodes, all that power he couldn't control, it just destroys him.
Gruesome, but so satisfying, like his ambition was eating him alive.
Right. But Blade wins, and it still costs him.
He's lost so much. He knows this fight. It's never really over. And then Karen offers him a chance to be normal, to cure his vampirism. What a moment.
Powerful. Shows you how dedicated Blade is. He knows the vampires will always be a threat, so he chooses to keep fighting, even if it means he can't be happy.
And that final shot of him walking off into the night with his sword. Iconic.
He's a warrior, forever fighting the darkness. So what about the sequels?
Yeah, what about Blade 2 and Trinity and the TV show?
Blade 2 was good. Guillermo del Toro directed it.
Oh yeah, he brought his own unique style, those amazing creature designs.
He's great at mixing horror and fantasy, and you see that in Blade 2. The vampires are scarier, more animal-like, but still kind of beautiful in a weird way.
And the action scenes. That opening fight in the blood bank is crazy. What'd you think of the sequel overall?
It's a good sequel, for sure. It builds on the first movie, brings in new characters, digs deeper into vampire lore. The action's awesome, it looks amazing, and Del Toro's direction adds something special.
Agreed. Solid action horror movie. And then there's Blade, Trinity. They tried something different, added those new vampire hunters, and went for more of a comedic tone.
Trinity, it's the one people argue about the most. It's not really focused on Blade anymore. They bring in Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds as this vampire hunting team, the Night Stalkers. And the jokes, they didn't work for everyone.
Yeah, I was kind of torn. It was fun seeing Blade with a team. Some of it was funny. But Blade himself felt less important, and the whole mood was lighter.
It's like they tried to do too much. Too many new characters, stories, and that self-aware humor, it just didn't fit with the other movies. But it's still entertaining, and it's interesting to see how they wanted to grow the Blade world.
And then there was that short-lived TV show, Blade, the series. Just one season back in 2006. It picked up after Trinity, with Sticky Fingaz playing Blade.
It could have been good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same as the movies. TV just didn't seem like the right format. And Sticky, he was fine, but he wasn't Wesley Snipes.
It's a bummer they only did one season. They could have explored Blade and his world for longer. But now, everyone's looking forward to that reboot from Marvel Studios, Mahershala Ali as Blade.
Exciting times for Blade fans. They're saying it's going to be darker, more mature. I can't wait to see that. And Mahershala Ali, he's perfect. He can definitely bring that intensity, make it nuanced.
He is an amazing actor. He's got the presence, and he can definitely do Blade justice. I'm curious, what will they do with the character? How will he fit into the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah, me too. How will they mix the dark horror stuff from Blade with the big fantastical world of the MCU? But Marvel knows what they're doing. They've shown they can handle different genres and still make something awesome.
Well, I am ready to see Blade back on the big screen, taking down vampires. Who knows, maybe this reboot will lead to new sequels or spin-offs.
The possibilities are endless. It shows how much people still love Blade. And that world that started back in 1998 with that first movie.
All right, so there you have it, our deep dive into Blade. The original movie, the sequels, that TV show, and everything coming up. We hope you enjoyed exploring this corner of the vampire genre with us.
It's been fun. We got to analyze this whole franchise, see what it's all about, how it stayed relevant.
And as always, we want to hear from you. What are your favorite Blade moments? Excited for the reboot? Let us know in the comments.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies we love.
See you next time. All right, we're back for the final part of our Blade deep dive.
The grand finale.
We've talked about that awesome first film, how it changed superhero movies, and why it's so unique and memorable.
Yeah.
But the story, it didn't stop there. Blade 2 came out in 2002.
And then Blade Trinity in 2004.
Neither of them quite hit the same level as the original.
Right.
But they did add more to the whole mythos.
Oh, yeah. Definitely gave us some new perspectives on Blade as a character.
I was so pumped for Blade 2, especially with Guillermo del Toro directing. He's got that visual style, those creature designs.
He really does. He brought that to Blade 2 for sure. He's a master of horror and fantasy.
Yeah.
The vampires in that sequel, they're just more monstrous.
Right.
More like animals, but still kind of beautiful.
In a freaky way, yeah.
Yeah.
And those action scenes.
Oh, man.
That opening fight in the blood bank is insane. Just pure chaos. So overall, what did you think of Blade 2?
It's a good sequel. It builds on the first one, new characters, more about vampires in general. The action is top-notch. It looks incredible. And Del Toro, he adds that dark, poetic touch.
I agree. It's a solid action horror flick.
Yeah.
Then we get Blade, Trinity.
Yeah.
That one went in a bit of a different direction.
Yeah.
New vampire hunters.
Yeah.
And it was funnier.
Trinity is a weird one. Some people love it, some hate it.
Yeah.
It's not really about Blade anymore, you know?
Yeah.
You got Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds as this vampire hunting team, the Night Stalkers. And the humor, it was more in your face. And some fans didn't like that.
I remember being on the fence about it. On the one hand, it was fun seeing Blade working with a team.
Yeah.
And there were some good laughs.
Yeah, there were.
But on the other hand, Blade felt kind of pushed aside.
Yeah.
And the tone, it was definitely lighter than the first two films.
I think Trinity tried to do too much.
Yeah.
Too many new characters, new plot lines, and that kind of self-aware humor.
Yeah.
It just didn't mesh well with what people expected from a Blade movie.
It didn't really fit.
But it's still entertaining, and it's interesting to see them trying to expand the Blade universe, even if it didn't quite work.
Yeah. And then there was that TV show, Blade, the series. It didn't last very long.
One season, 2006.
Picked up after Trinity,
Yeah.
with Sticky Fingaz playing Blade.
It had potential,
It did.
but it didn't have that same magic as the movies. TV just felt too limiting for Blade. And Sticky, he was all right, but he wasn't Wesley Snipes.
No, not quite the same. It's a shame they only got one season. There was room to do more with the character, tell more stories in that world.
Yeah, I agree.
But now, the big thing is that reboot coming from Marvel Studios. Mahershala Ali as Blade.
That's what has everyone
It's
excited.
supposed to be darker, more mature, which sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali, perfect casting.
He is. He's got that intensity, that subtlety. He can definitely do Blade justice.
He can bring a lot to the role. I'm really curious how they'll update Blade, bring him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Me too.
Uh,
How will they mix those dark horror elements with the whole big, fantastic MCU world?
yeah, good question.
But Marvel, they've got a good track record.
They do?
They know how to blend genres, and they usually make something really special.
They've got the formula down. Well, I am counting down the days until we see Blade back on the big screen, taking down all those vampires.
Me too.
Who knows? Maybe this reboot will kick off a whole new wave of Blade movies.
Sequels, spin-offs, the possibilities are endless.
It's pretty amazing how much staying power this character has.
Yeah.
It all goes back to that first movie in 1998. It really broke new ground.
It did.
All right, that's our deep dive into Blade. The original, the sequels, the TV series, and what's next. We had a blast exploring this part of the vampire genre with you.
We did. It's been fun digging into this whole franchise, seeing what makes it tick, how it stayed relevant.
As always, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What are your favorite Blade moments? Are you stoked for that reboot? Let us know in the comments.
And don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies we love.
Until next time.